Welcome back, everybody. So from what you see in front of the camera here, you can probably take a guess of what today's video is going to be on. It's going to be on how to set up a case-activated powder measure. We're going to go over some parts real quick. Here we have a spring, a couple screws. We have the rifle cylinder. Here we have the base of the powder measure. I already have it in a Hornady lock and load bushing. Here I have the powder measure frame and the tube. Over here I have the baffle for the powder measure. Then I have my 3 adapters. This one here is going to be for large caliber rifle, hence the reason why it's so short. This one's going to be for smaller rifle. It's perfect for 223 and 556 and 243. And this is the longest one, which you could guess that's probably for pistol, which it is. Today, I'm going to be setting up for rifle. So I just wanted you guys to see the parts that go into it. And now I'm going to show you guys how I put it all together and get it set up and throw in a charge. Alright, so now that you've seen all the pieces, I'm going to start putting it together for you guys. The very first thing I like to do is go ahead and take the base that's already in a bushing. The Hornady lock and load bushing, I go ahead. I just drop that in a spot closest to me to go ahead and start the build. So next thing I do is I go ahead and pick which adapter I'm going to use, which I'm going to use the rifle adapter, the medium sized adapter. You always put that end down. The elongated end, like that, is always going to go up. So you go ahead and drop that in. Next thing you want to do, now that you picked your adapter, go ahead and drop the main piece in. Now you can see there's just an empty cylinder here, nothing in it. It's just sitting on here, nothing done. Find you a better angle here, hold on. Alright, now you can see it's just a hollow piece. Nothing going on, nothing's connected. So the next thing I like to do is go ahead and come over here and I get the piston for my rifle. Since I'm loading for a rifle, I go ahead and slide it in and grab my adjustment knob. There's a little button on the left side of this cylinder. Press it in. It'll let you get started and pull it all the way in and lock it back out. Whenever you pull out, you'll hear a little click. That's going to lock it in place. So now you have your rifle cylinder set up in your frame. The next thing you want to do is go ahead, get this piece here. Has one long slit in it and then 2 holes. Those 2 holes are going to be for the 2 screws that you got. Go ahead and grab one of your screws. Don't tighten it down yet. Just get it started. That way you got wiggle room for your second screw to go in so you can get it aligned right. Alright, now I got both screws started. So now you got both screws in. Take your Allen key, and run these down. Alright, so now we got the cylinder in. Now we're going to go ahead, run this thumb screw out slightly till you can get the circular part in the center of this bar here, which I'll show you guys. So you can see there's a small piece and then there's a circular spot. This way it can't slide off from this thumb screw because it has to go through this circle and it's not big enough to slide out. So you get that started in the hole, run your thumb screw down. Next thing I do is I grab my spring here, take your spring, run it from here down to the base. So you're going to run it from the frame of your powder measure to the base of your powder measure. That right there is what, every time the case charges it, lifts this up. That spring is what's going to pull this in back down inside of it and get it ready to charge again. So now we got the thumb screw in, we got our rifle cylinder in, we have our spring on. The next thing to do is take your baffle and go ahead and just drop your baffle in. That simple, nothing big about the whole baffle deal, you just drop it in. It'll look a little something like that right there. All that's going to do is keep large volumes of powder from stacking at the bottom and making it harder for this right here to feed. It just kind of keeps all the weight of the extra powder you have in your tube here from just setting on this cylinder. So it keeps a lot of pressure off of it and gives it smoother feeding. So we have everything together now. Got our baffle in. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add some powder. So I'm going to grab my powder and I'll be right back. Alright, so now I got my powder. I'm going to be loading Hodgson H4895 powder. This one I'm going to use for my 223, which is what I'm setting this powder charger up for. Alright, so now we got powder in here. I like to give it a couple taps just to get some powder down below the baffle. And there's plenty down there now. So the next step is to come right down here at the base on this lock ring right here. There's a lock ring. I'll turn around here so you guys can see exactly what's going on. As you can see here on the lock ring has a little Allen key screw in it right here. So what you're going to have to do to unlock it is you're going to loosen that, and when you loosen it you're just going to break that nut loose. The next thing you want to do is take one of your cases that you're going to be loading. Make sure it still has a primer in it, whether it's a spent primer or a new one, because if you forget this primer and you drop powder down in it, you're going to have a mess. So the way I do the next step Let me see if I can get you a good angle here. is I go ahead, I put my case in there, then I run it up, and what you want to look for is that right there. You want it to be about that far from the top, maybe a little closer, but that's going to be okay for now. Pull the handle back up. Now you can see it's been charged. So what you want to test now is how much powder is getting dropped into your case. So the way we check that is we're going to go over to the scales and start weighing some powder charges. Alright, we got the scale set up and ready to rock. And we're going to start throwing some powder charges till we get this thing adjusted where we want it. We're looking for 23.3 grains. So let's see how close we are. It should be pretty close already, if not dead on. Okay, 23.4. What I like to do is I'll throw my powder charge a couple times to see if I can get a consecutive powder charge. If it's throwing everywhere and it's hitting 0.3 above what you want, 0.3 below, there's some things that could be happening. Maybe when you cleaned it, you left some oil on it or something like that. As you can see, it just now dropped from 23.4 to 23.0. A lot of that could be where I just now dropped the powder in it after I put it together. So it hasn't got powder filtered all the way through it just yet. So we'll go ahead and run it through a couple times and see what it's going to hit here. See, 23.2. .1. So what we're going to do now, it's hitting a little bit low, is we're going to go over to the adjustment knob and I'm going to show you guys how to adjust to get more or less powder. Alright, so over here, this is the end of your adjustment knob right here, and this is a lock nut that goes on it. You want to have your lock nut just tight enough to where you can move this with tension being on it without it moving the lock nut. So that way you can move small increments at a time without taking too big of a jump, and your lock ring stays tight, so there's just tension on this. You don't want to run that down so tight that you can't even move this, or else you're constantly going to have to break it and move it, break it, move it, and tighten your lock nut back down, and it just becomes a pain. It's easier to get this tight enough to where you can just barely turn this around, and it makes it a lot simpler. So we're getting a low charge, so we're just going to run that out a little bit. So if you want to change it, you run this out just a little bit. Mine's pretty much where I want it because I already had it set up before the video. So I'm going to leave it right here, but you're going to turn this out to get more of a charge. And you're going to run this knob in to decrease your powder charge. So after you do that, you'll have it set up. And then after you get it set up, you're pretty much ready to go and start loading your cases. A smart thing to do, I'm going to show you guys my setup here. That's my press. So the smart thing to do is once you get this press set up, Go ahead and run 4 or 5 cases through it. Go ahead and get your bullet seating depth right. And then after you run a couple cases through it, check your charge, make sure it's still accurate. Make it a point to do every 5th or every 10th round. Go ahead and just pull it out of there and drop it on the scale real quick. And then just adjust from there. The reason I say you check every couple rounds is maybe you're throwing the handle a little different than what it was whenever you were checking it. And if you throw it faster or slower, or maybe you're hitting the bottom of the ram a little bit harder, then it could cause it to drop more powder or less powder. So the best thing to do is check it every couple rounds. Just as well as every couple rounds, you should check your bullet seating depth too, just to make sure that it's staying accurate. And that should be part of your quality assurance anyway. And what time you do that, you know, it takes a few extra seconds, but it guarantees you a more accurate round. But all in all, that right there is how you set up your powder measure. Or my bad, your case activated powder measure. It's pretty simple. Once you do it once or twice, it's just second nature, and it gets a lot faster. But from this video, you guys should be able to easily set up your case activated powder measure, and it should definitely clear things up if you had a question about it. Until next time, guys.